I'm glad I don't have to look at myself on that screen. When I first stood up here, I thought I was going to have to look at myself all night. And I'm too narcissistic for that. So Laura, I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 23rd of 2000. I am sponsored. My sponsor's here tonight and had to listen to quite a lengthy fifth step before I got up here. So I'm either brain dead or glowing, one or the other. I'm hoping for the glowing. So I am really grateful to be here. I'm grateful for you for asking me, and you guys are such a welcoming group. Everybody was like saying hi and everything when I came in, which is really great. And I'm trying to remember if I said my sobriety date, May 23rd of 2000. I think I said that. My home group is the Basic Text Big Book Study. We meet on Saturday mornings in Ashland, just north of Richmond. And we have a very similar to what Big Book Studies do. We read the Big Book each week, read a passage, have someone share their experience for about 10 minutes, and then open it up for the floor. And then we do the tradition the last Saturday of the month. So hopefully in an appropriate general way, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. What happened to me before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, how I got here, what my life looks like today, and hopefully woven in that is the experience I've had with developing a relationship with a higher power. I see a lot of friends I haven't seen in a while tonight, so it's really great to be here with you guys. And so my journey, and I'll say this because sometimes I forget to say this, or I don't have much time because I get caught in the past. My journey with a relationship of my understanding has not been very smooth or flat. And I've been sober a little bit, and it's still not smooth or flat. In fact, sometimes I think it gets even bumpier. And I used to really, really, really struggle with that. Like, I've been sober a little bit of time. Like, I should be levitating off of something, or, glowing from a mountaintop, or, not thinking these horrible thoughts as I'm driving down the road at the person who just, did something. Or I should act better at home, or I should be able to manage my life better, or I should be more spiritually fit. I've had a lot of old ideas about what it looks like to try to develop and maintain a relationship with a God of my understanding. And so I've had to let some of that stuff go. Because it's like, I think the fact that I wrestle, for me, is okay. It's just the way I am. It's just the way I'm wired. I'm kind of like a fifth gear girl, like a Bronco with big tires and the mud spinning sometimes. And, they say the road's closed and I might just go down there anyway. And, I can be inappropriate and messy and clumsy. And what I've had to surrender to is what it talks about in the third step, that, this idea that God is everything, and that I'm okay where I am. And so for me, that's got to be true the moment I walk in the door as much as it is today. And I've had a lot of ideas about, like, if I get off the path, or I do something wrong, or I don't practice the 11th step just perfectly, that, like, I'm just doing it all wrong, and I love to, like, overthink things and get myself in a kind of a tailspin about that. And so I'm not great at it, but I've let a lot of that stuff go, and just, like, it's okay to be who I am. I am well sponsored, that's another thing that I'm really grateful for. I've always had I've been effectively sponsored by two people. There was someone that tried to help me, and it wasn't her fault. I wouldn't let her, you can't be sponsored by someone if you don't show up for the process. And that's another really beautiful gift we get here. We get to pick our leaders here. I don't take sponsorship lightly. I want someone I can trust. I want someone that when I say something to them, it's going to stay there with them and not go anywhere else. And so I've been really grateful, having just done a fifth step, less than an hour ago, for almost, 3 hours. I was brought back to the woman that sponsored me. She sponsored me for 11 years. And it was a similar flavor to how I'm sponsored now, but it was a much more inventory writing approach, which is just fine. But I love to write inventory and like analyze and figure out and fix myself. And I spent a long time in Alcoholics Anonymous doing that. And I was reminded, I was telling Steve, one of my really good friends, he said, Laura, it's time to let the horse out of the gate. And I was like, what does he mean? But what he meant is like, it's time to actually start to practice this stuff and have some experiences and make some mistakes and be okay with that. And I've really struggled with that because I don't want to be uncomfortable. I want you guys to like me. I want you to think like I'm the best AA ever. I want you to, I don't like being up here, but I want to be like asked to be up here, like this, like crazy, multiple personality. I guess I have, that type of flavor. So anyway, I am really. I've just been given a lot here. My life has completely changed as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've also gotten really, I wouldn't say really good at, like, I continue to surrender to, like, that it's really not about being perfect, but it's just about being present in the moment with you guys and being connected to my sponsor and being connected to my home group and answering the phone when those women call me and doing the things that I don't always want to do has kept me moving forward. And for someone like me who has a mind that races like 1,000,000 miles a minute to this day, like I need a solution that's going to meet me where I am and move me forward. Because I don't know that I'm ever going to slow down a whole lot more. I mean, maybe I am, right? Maybe I'm going to be one of those people who's calm and zen-like. I've certainly changed a lot over the years. I'm not as impulsive and crazy as I used to be. But I mean, I had 2 brand new ideas. I came up this morning and told my husband, one's about knocking down a wall in our house and the other's about like, tilling up this field and grading it out and, bringing some horses, small ideas. But that's just how I roll. I'm always thinking and doing. So anyway, I've just been really, reminded, I guess, today of like that this is for someone like me. I get the opportunity to have a solution for my alcoholism and an ability to have relationships with people, even though it isn't always easy, and a way to move forward in a way where I'm not always throwing a temper tantrum, because I like to get my way. So I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about how I got to the front door of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I was not looking to come to. So I live in Ashland today, and which is just north of Richmond, and I lived in Ashland all my life. And I'm a restless person, and I always wanted to get out of there. It was a really small town back then. We had like one grocery store, and my grandfather was a church minister of one church, and we went to the other church over here, and I just felt like everyone knew me. And I always wanted to be somebody else. Like I wanted to be shorter, I wanted to be skinnier, I wanted to be super attractive and smart and athletic and like all these things I saw other people like pulling off. And so I always wanted to get out of that small town, I'm an only child, and I was like, I just need to get away from these people and go be free. And so anyway, it's just very ironic again. It's like I live next door to my dad. I live in my grandparents' farmhouse, across the gravel driveway from where I grew up. I mean, I just didn't make it very far, and it's okay. I mean, talk about practicing some. There's a lot of character defects that show up regularly when you live next door to your parents. So anyway, so that's been a real growth opportunity for me there. I'm an only child growing up in this, very well-meaning, well-loving family. I was raised with like a loving God image, which is pretty, when I talked to my parents when I was, probably in the first 5 years of my sobriety, about their relationship and understanding with like God. It was like drastically different than the one that I came up with. And we went to the same place, right? We're hearing the same message. But what I heard was that like I got to do it right, or I'm going to like, you know, the fiery pits. And nothing that I wanted to do or that seemed exciting or the kids I wanted to hang out with were like, they were doing all the things that I wanted to do that were going to land me in the dark place, you know. And so I really, I struggled with that, you know. I struggled with like, I want to be a good girl, but like I have this like, it's like this deep rootedness that's like, I want to be, I am looking for something outside of me. I am looking for more. And so I eventually found that. I was 17. I'm kind of a late bloomer for AA. And it was my junior prom. And I mean, as I think about it, it's like I'm sitting there, you know, right now. We were all sitting around drinking these little frou-frou margarita drinks and daiquiris. And I just felt good. I like felt, you know, today I would describe it as like what I'm seeking here in AA, like a spiritual awakening. You know, I wouldn't have called it that back then, but I just felt fine. Like, I'm not worried about the fact that I'm 6 feet tall and the guys are not. I'm not worried about the fact that, you know, that I'm hanging out with all the cool kids at this party and I don't feel very cool. You know, I feel kind of like just on the outside. I didn't feel that way then. You know, I felt part of this hot guy that was throwing the party, came and sat on my lap and started like kind of kissing me, and I was like, you know, I thought it meant way more than it did. Let's put it that way. But I was like, man, I have arrived. You know, I love it when Bill Wilson talks about that. It's like he keeps coming to all these places in his life where he's like, this is it. You know, this is the answer. This is the answer for my drinking, or this is the answer for all my money problems, or whatever. And that was definitely a night where I felt like I had arrived. I don't, to my knowledge, I don't have any experience with social drinking. As you kind of fifth gear girl, I'm kind of, I have always drank really hard and fast, and I did that night to the extent that, you know, I did. I didn't throw up that night. I'm also a huge puker, so. But I loved the feeling. I loved being with everyone. I finally felt like I was with my people. They seemed all very cool, and I wanted more. But at that time in my life, I wasn't willing to pay the price of what that really fully looked like, because I still wanted to be a good girl. And, you know, I don't know that I want to be a good girl. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get caught. I don't want to hear lectures. I don't want to have to do things that I don't want to do. So it's more like, instead of being, I just want to run under the radar. So that's what I tried to do. I tried to show up at church on Sunday when I was supposed to, and Wednesday nights, and I went to school, and I wasn't drinking before school or during school or after school when I might get caught. And on the weekends, I went, like, where I live, it pulls from about a 30-mile radius, and so we go out in the country. I'm from, you know, like the bonfire drinking and parties and stuff like that, and the big old pickup trucks and all that stuff. And so we did all our drinking there, and I stayed with friends like every weekend that I could. And they happened to be all third children. I don't know if there are any third children in here, but you guys get away with everything. Most of them had their like own part of the house. It's like, I guess they're just worn down by the other siblings. And yeah, so I did that almost every weekend that I could, basically, which was most of them. And I, from the get-go, I just, you know, it's like we all were like throwing up and, you know, being wild and crazy, but I just seemed like a little bit above and beyond. It's like, you know, my hangovers were like till, you know, 4 or 5 in the afternoon. My throwing up wasn't a couple hours, it was like into the morning, you know. My inappropriateness or whatever, I mean, it just seemed like I didn't really care or notice so much at the time, but when I look back, it's like it's almost like I had an allergy to alcohol, you know? I mean, I think the average person, if they responded to alcohol like that, wouldn't have pursued it to the degree that I pursued it. And again, it wasn't that much, but I loved it, So I spent the rest of that year and, the next year just doing that, just hanging out. Any of the friends that I had had before, they went to the wayside. I only surrounded myself with people that were drinking like I was drinking. And then I went to Virginia Tech. I had to stay in-state. Those were the rules. But I wanted to get far enough away that there wasn't going to be any like drive-bys with my parents. And so, and I loved it up there. It was great. It's a college town. This campus and everything just basically takes up the whole town, and we thought we ran it. And I had a lot of fun. And I went with the same intentions of I'm going to be a good girl during the week. I'm going to, I was a pre-med major. I had plans and ideas, and I, it's like I had no idea what was about to happen. But over the next 3 years, I changed my major probably like 8 times because I'm a shifter. I am constantly trying to figure out the right combination to make my life make sense. And so my drinking became just more and more and more important. And so it's like, and I was trying to figure out the rhythm. So it's definitely not an 8 a.m. class, so those were all cut out. And it's definitely not too late in the day, because then you start drinking in the afternoon, and then you can't go to those classes either. And so it's just, my life just got consumed with people who drank like me. And I also started to do a lot of other stuff. I'm kind of an equal opportunity girl, so if it's available, I'll do it. And so I did a lot of that stuff. I started dating. I mean, dating's kind of a hard word to use, but I started hanging out with a lot of the people that were like me. I thought my problems were, this guy I'm hanging out with doesn't treat me right, like I said, the major's too hard, I gotta change, whatever it was. And eventually I just dropped out, because it's like I tried to either quit jobs or drop out of school before I'm going to fail or they're going to fire me. And so I did that, but I stayed up in Blacksburg because I had a job waiting tables. I was talking about that with someone earlier, but I love waiting tables. Oh, we were talking about how the guy knows your order at the restaurant. That's the type of places I like to work. I call them sling and hash. I like to work in little dive diners where you know everybody that comes in, and like everybody's like family, and your bad behavior is usually tolerated, which I had a lot of, because I would show up in all different states and not having slept or just all over the place. And so I worked there for a while, and what happened to me was like everyone else was like a junior going into their senior year, and they were like doing things like figuring out the rest of their life, or thinking about applying to graduate school, or they had been dating someone seriously, or they were working a job and paying to go for school. And my life just looked like I went to this little restaurant in the morning, and I worked my shift, and then around 2 I got off and I started drinking with the guy who cooked in the morning. And pretty soon, it's like the only guys I'm hanging out with are this, I don't really even want to be hanging out with them, or this guy, I don't even know where he came from. But he just showed up and became like my new best friend, and we were living a life that I look at today, it was just really, really gross. Like, I was embarrassed for people that were like my friends that were doing stuff with their lives to know that I was hanging out with these people. And it's not like I was any better than them, I was one of them, but just our whole lives were very small and they were very dark. And so the way I get away from things like that is I leave. I just cut and run. So instead of saying to this guy, I don't want to hang out with you anymore, I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to go hang out with my roommate who's doing things with her life. I just left and went home to live with my mom and dad, because I thought I didn't understand the nature of alcoholism, or that I had it. And so I thought, if I put myself in a different type of environment with some rules and some structure, and where you can't just act like stay up all night and do whatever you want and party and drink, and that things would change. And I should back up. I started having a lot of blackouts. I started, I'm a bedwetter too, which is super attractive. And I started this like cutting and running. It's like how I whittled myself down to 2 people who, by the way, those people didn't care that I blacked out or wet the bed. I would just bounce from thing to thing to thing, from group to group to group, because it was really embarrassing that these things that I did and how out of control my drinking was, or how I lost 6 hours of the evening. I didn't want to explain that that's really just how I roll all the time. So I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's never happened before, and then I wouldn't hang out with them again. So anyway, I'm in Ashland. I have this little puppy I've gotten who's like ripping the siding off my parents' house and being totally crazy. And I'm like, I'm gonna get a different type of job. So I got an office manager job, and I couldn't even balance my checkbook. So it's kind of like a joke that I got that job. And I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna walk my dog and I'm gonna eat dinner with my parents and I'm gonna pay whatever little bills I have and I'm gonna do something different. And the office manager job was in a brewery, and you got free. I didn't see that at the time. You got a free shift beer. So every, I don't know what I did, to be honest, but there may have been a time where I said I don't want the free shift beer. I doubt that actually happened, but there was a period of time where I had that one shift beer, and then I went home. But that didn't last very long because I soon made friends with all the guys that were making the beer, and I soon just started hanging out with them and drinking and crashing at their place. And then it's like the same old thing, I'm coming to work in the morning and I'm throwing up in the bathroom and I'm hungover till 4, and I can't do any of the things that I want to do, right? Like I'm going to get my accounting degree. I'm going to take these classes. Like this guy's going to pay for them, the owner of the brewery. I just can't pull it together. So I quit because, again, that's what I do. And at this time, I had met these guys that were on sabbatical from their jobs, which I love sabbaticals, because working's really inconvenient, and I'm not someone who drinks and works well. I sponsor people who drink and work well. I mean, they went to their jobs from 9 to 5 every day and were like pulled off being a decent human being and an adult and paying their bills. I'm not one of those people. So, and this place was like kind of like another black hole. We used to listen to the same record over and over and over again, and we didn't eat much, and just like day would turn into night, would turn into day, that type of thing. And it was really great. I loved it because we just drank and did all kinds of stuff all the time. And I brought my dog with me, so because he needed to go. And I basically lived out of my car, but they would let me sleep on the couch. And then this guy came back. I don't know where he had been for weeks on end, and it may have been days, but it seemed like weeks I had been there. And he was a roommate and had a bedroom. And so I upgraded myself there and, started hanging out with him. And he was I thought that he was a drug dealer. And so I was really excited about that. He really wasn't one. And ironically enough, he wasn't even really a drinker. So, unfortunately, he got tangled up with me. And we went on, he loved Widespread Panic. And so he said, I'm going to go on a spring tour with them. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. Like, I'll go too, inviting myself along. And we had a business model, and we were going to sell glassware and cigarettes and bottled water and, make money and, pave the way. And it didn't work out so well. We owed that glass man a lot of money, which I think my dad paid him back. And I smoked all those cigarettes. And we had a grand old time. At least I did. By the end of that, he wanted nothing to do with me because I need to drink. And when I start drinking, like, all bets are off. Like, it's very unpredictable what's going to happen to me. And I used to love that in Blacksburg. I was like, let's see where the night's going to take us, But we were in a new town and a new place, and this guy's not a drinker, and so he was always killing my vibe. And I remember this one night, my dog's name was Nesta, and this guy Greg had actually trained Nesta, so he was not like ripping siding off of people's houses and stuff like that anymore. And Nesta ran away in the middle of this, I don't know where we were, town or city or something. And I don't, it's like, how like just thoughts through your head. Before Alcoholics Anonymous, I always acted on those, especially if they involve like a drinking thought. Well, that sounds like a good idea. I should go find somewhere to drink. And so he has left to go find the dog. We're supposed to be sleeping in his vehicle. And I just disappear, I go down the street to where the bars are and find myself a hockey team. And they were buying me drinks, and I had great plans. I had met this really hot guy, and I had the whole evening planned out with him. And I remember the manager of teams kept saying to me, "I do not think it's a good idea if you come back to the hotel room with a hockey team." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And mind you, my experience in Blacksburg was I went places and I got more than I bargained for. So I wasn't immune to the idea of things happening that you don't always want to happen, or you black out and you don't know what happened. But I was just clueless. But here comes Greg. It's like I don't know, it's like I had a tracking device on me or something. And he totally, I think this is being recorded, so I won't say what I was going to say. But he blocked my plans for the evening and basically, took me back to the car. And but that's how it was with me. Like, I would start drinking and I would disappear. And so if you're hanging out with people that do that, it's not a problem. They're usually along for the ride. But it was just becoming very apparent to me that he wanted nothing to do with me. And I was starting to get nervous, that anxiety of like, okay, I'm like, I don't know, 20 or 21 at this time. I have no money, right? I have no boyfriend to land to next. I don't want to go home to my mom and dad because that didn't work out. I guess I could go to Blacksburg. I'm like trying to figure it out, And I met at this last show, I met this guy, and he had, his name was Star, and he lived out of his van, and he had his like absolutely gorgeous 3-year-old son with him, and I would play with his kid, and have just a great time, It was like hanging out and being like free. I love the festival life, by the way. I love going places and all your new best friends are there, and you just walk around and everybody's happy to see you and everybody's sharing and generous, and it's just very like hippie-like. And so, it was just that like atmosphere. And I remember I wasn't feeling well, probably because I was so wound up about what I was going to do, like who's my next victim going to be probably. And so Greg went into the show, and I stayed there and had this like really deep philosophical conversation with Star about like how my life wasn't really going anywhere, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And he said to me, something to the effect of like kind of like what we say in AA, but with a twist, I guess. Like you just got to let it go. Like it's all going to work out. Like God's going to take care of you type of vibe. And I was like, do you believe in Jesus? Because that was my experience, right? I was like raised in a very religious household. So the only like God language I had heard was in those veins. And so he was kind of alluding to that. So, and he said, well, I think Jesus was a great prophet like me. And no red flags went off. I was like, oh, okay. And then and I kind of liked this guy. He was very cool. He had like this bleached blonde mohawk, and he had a goatee, and he just seemed free, Like I am all bottled up inside most of the time, unless I'm completely out of my mind drunk. And he was sober-ish. And he just seemed free, and like that's really attractive to me. I had spent my years in Blacksburg reading levitation books, and was it Don Quixote, and huddling up next to trees, trying to like suck the energy from the earth so that I would feel better and have a life that made sense to me. And none of that worked. So man, I was like, I am all in. he was willing to hang out with me. So I made some plans, and I met up with him in Blacksburg. I don't even know how I got there. I think my old roommate came and got me. And what just floated through my head was, thus starts one more journey to the asylum with Jim. And so I hung out with him not very long, a couple of weeks, may have been 7 days, I don't know. Things start to get fuzzy for me because I'm not eating. We're not drinking all the time. We are doing other stuff a little bit. But he has a real like belief system and this like spiritual kind of underground, which is like super exciting to me because it's basically like God loves you and you can drink and do all the drugs you want. And God like protects us because we're like underground, I guess. And we get to rename ourselves, which I was excited about. But I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the idea of kind of like going off the radar and going to live in this hippie commune. And, you know, I'm an only child. And I don't know. I made some phone calls to my parents and, you know, the police show up at the rest stop we're at one time. It's like these people are trying to like remain undercover, and we're just not next to a police officer, and that just kept happening with me. Like I'll tell you about the rest of it in a minute, but it's like I was like I don't know. This might have actually been recently in the last few years. It's interesting what you learn about later, right? Like what really is going on. And my parents had been calling their friend, the police officer down the street, and asking them, like, they just wanted me to get arrested. That's what they wanted. They wanted me to get arrested so that I would get away from the people I was hanging out with so that that I would be safe. And they could not get me arrested because I wasn't technically doing anything wrong. So, but all that's going on in the background, you know. And so so we're in Pennsylvania. They made my resentment inventory. And Star's going off to some city to get some things for the next festival we're going to. And he tells me, like, who knows what he told me. But what I heard was, you need to follow the signs and get your you-know-what together. And because... like this is, to be with me, basically. And I didn't want to lose him. And everything had a meaning with them. And so I followed the signs, which led me around the apartment complex to various places, a rooftop once. I mean, I don't know, some like insane stuff that I participated in on my own, right? Like of my own thinking. And it landed me in this woman's apartment. And I managed to get myself a felony breaking, entering, and trespassing charge, and be shipped. And yet the police came once again, right, to these people who don't want to have the police called on them. And I'm carted off. They put me in solitary confinement because they thought I was a suicide risk. But I am like deep in, right? Like, I think it's the end of the world, and the safe people are in jail, and I'm tying some like Star Wars thing in there, and then there's some Bible verses written on my mattress, and I'm looking those up, to get some knowledge, and and then it's like everything else. Like when it doesn't go how I think it's gonna go, and my dad was like making sure I knew I was in jail at one point, and then I throw a big old temper tantrum. Like, why aren't you people letting me out? You said I was just going to be here a couple days. And when you throw a temper tantrum in jail, they could care less that you threw your mattress and your clothes and your bar soap and your toilet paper and, literally everything out of the cell. They just could care less, right? I think they gave me back a wool blanket and a mattress. So no soap, no toilet paper, and no clothes. It was a little uncomfortable for the rest of my visit there. And then they, and again, my dad tells me, this is when I was earlier in sobriety, like just things were going on, It's like so many people, it's like my journey here with God. It's like despite myself, right? There is a creator that cares about me, that is constantly intervening on me, right? Like just grace is just pouring down, right? And I feel like that's what was going on. I mean, people were, they did things they wouldn't normally have done for someone in my circumstances because they said I didn't fit the profile of someone. The government considers them a cult. I don't know if they're a cult or not, but they said I didn't fit the profile. But I had a shaved head because that was a great idea I had in Asheville. I was big into piercings at this time, and the bigger and the wider, the better, because normal people didn't want, I shouldn't say normal, that was people would think twice about having conversations with me, let me just put it that way. Like, my ears were all pierced, I had like huge, thick thing coming out of my nose. Steve calls it a bone, it was not a bone, so it was a large metal thing. And I was, but I didn't fit the profile, whatever that profile was. My parents bailed me out $20,000 cash to get me out because they didn't want the cult getting me out. But I had burned the bridge with the cult, so they don't even want me in the cult. Because I caused too many problems, Like, my drinking is so unpredictable, my behavior is unpredictable, my emotional instability is unpredictable. And so I just went through a really dark time because I spent a lot of time being bounced around between psychiatric units and chemical dependency units, and I was literally crazy. I am not joking. I was like certifiably insane, and then being just really depressed. Like, I'm trying not to drink. Because it's like forbidden or whatever, but I didn't really care about that. And then I'm living at home with my parents, and I have no friends, and all I have is my dog. So here's where I try to like have some controlled drinking. There would be a period of time that would go by, and I would not drink, and then I would set out to have a drink, and it was my mind was racier than it's ever been. The blackouts would come. They're just very unpredictable. Sometimes it's after a couple drinks. Usually everyone was mad at me whenever I came to because I had said and done inappropriate things. And then I would like be filled with that like shame and like just feeling horrible about myself, and I would try to stretch some time together. There were a lot of hoops to jump through for these little felonies that I had, and so I eventually, it's a long story, but I landed with a therapist, and one of the greatest gifts he gave me was he said, because if you go to a psychiatric unit multiple times, you will get multiple diagnoses when you act like I did. And also all kinds of stuff. So I had been diagnosed bipolar 2, a few other mental illnesses, a drug addict, an alcoholic, a codependent at one time. They called me that. I was like, sure, I want people to like me. And so I was like really confused and crazy. Like, I'm 22 years old and I can't drive myself in a car because I follow the signs to go find Star, which involves adding license plates together. It's really bad. And, my mommy's driving me 3 days a week to therapy. And I can't work, so it's just this is a very sad, sad time. And I'm still, researching the Bible and listening to this tape that Star had sent back over and over again for the hidden messages that he was probably trying to send me where to meet him. And so it's just a bad place. And I signed up for, this is the thing that breaks the straw in back, which makes me come to you people who I think are crazy. Because I had been introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous and Tucker's, and I signed up for a pottery class, and I got drunk the night before and missed it. And it was the only good thing I had going in my life. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to call those crazy people in AA. Because this therapist had told me I need to quit drinking for a year. He said, I think you've had a nervous breakdown, and your body cannot recover unless you quit putting substances. That's not a problem, Doc. I got this. But I couldn't pull it off. So I came into AA, and I treated AA just like I did the streets. So I am here to have a good time. I am looking for the hot guys. I cannot keep my butt in a seat to save my life. I'm perusing literature tables. I'm, I'd had side conversations, I look back at it now, it's just off the chain. But I did go to a lot of inner city late night Richmond meetings. So it was tolerated to some degree. But I did start attending this. I eventually got a job working for that. Took that pottery class and worked for the pottery guy. And so I used to go to this like 5:30 like West End meeting where all these like kind of rich people go, and I'd show up like covered in pottery clay, And I had picked up some of the lingo, and I would share my wealth of knowledge with these people. And they would say things to me like, "Do you have a sponsor? You should really get a sponsor." And that's where I did that like name only woman, she was really wonderful and tried to help me, but I just wasn't done. I didn't really believe I was an alcoholic. I didn't understand what alcoholism was. I didn't understand the allergy, the obsession of the mind, any of that. And I didn't understand, this idea that they talk about, like that really lack of power is my real problem. Like I'm such a power seeker, and I've been living my whole life trying to find something to fix me, to live off of. Who knew, right? Instead of sucking everything from everybody, that like it's the reverse that works. Like, who knew? Helping other people, not thinking about yourself for 5 seconds might actually move you forward on the spiritual, axiom. So I met, I'm going to speed this up. I met this woman who was very polished. And I am not polished. I am patchworky and can't decide whether to shave my legs or not. And I still got my shaved head and all my earrings. And she approached me and met me where I was and offered to sit down and help me figure out whether I was an alcoholic or not. And it started this journey of, where it's like I was so sick, and then I got in a structured home group, and I took the steps, and I got better, and then I'm like carrying my big AA bat around with me, and in that was fear, so much fear, because I was like, if you don't do AA just like I do it, then you're going to get drunk, and I don't want that to be contagious to me. So, and so my approach to the spiritual life was based in fear a lot. The prayers I said, just my approach that I have to do it right. I mean, when I started working with Steve, I told him I wasn't doing the 11th step right because I didn't read it religiously, like in the morning and in the evening. And he said, Laura, the 11th step, it's a great thing in the big book, but it's bigger than that. And I'm like, yes, I know that, but I have to do it like this or it's not right. The other place I was at 11 years sober, and I told this to Steve, was that my husband thought I'd rather be at AA than home with him. And I had no clue how to be a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous and a good member of my family and a good worker at work and a good friend. I didn't know I was doing it, and it's not like I was brought up to do this at AA, but I was doing it. I was pitting all my stuff against Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was all out of fear. There's not this big enough, that God's not big enough for all of it, right? That God can meet me where I'm supposed to be. And, when I'm at work, it's okay to be at work and call people back. When I have a commitment with my husband and someone asks me to speak, I can keep my commitment with my husband. I mean, I would cancel that stuff left and right if something came up. And so it's been, the last, I'll share this, the last 13 years have been a lot of me unboxing stuff, because I like to box stuff up because it feels good and safe, and then it doesn't work because it's me controlling things instead of having an actual real relationship with a higher power. So thank you for having me.